Well, hello students. I am going to try and do a video here that will allow you to see my screen and walk you through the correlation lab and see if that might help answer some of the questions I know that have come up, and maybe just to determine if this is a good way to teach you guys without being right there beside you in the lab working on SPSS. So, first of all, I want you to look at here, we've got the Exploring Data Lab and the Correlation Lab for this module. So I'm going to go through this Correlation Lab. And this is the lab where you're going to see what the relationship is between the essay marks or grade that the students got and the time they spent studying. So what is the relationship between those two? So as time spent studying goes up, does the grade go up? Now intuitively that's what we would think would happen, right? Or is it a correlation where as one goes down, the other one goes down, or the other one goes up? So we've got to figure out how we're going to, what this relationship is, and we can use SPSS to do that. So I do want you to ignore, however, the part where you break it out by grade. That's just a little extra, and I'm not concerned about that at this point. I just want you to be able to run this analysis and know what a correlation is. So there is our discussion board, and if I go in to the module and open up the data for the lab, you'll see that that is right here. And so the data, I know that we've done a lab where you had to enter into the data, and I just want you to know that from now on in the labs you don't have to enter the data will already be entered for you. So if that whole putting in the data into SPSS, you were confused and you kind of don't know how you got there, really don't worry about it at this point. I wanted you to kind of get used to SPSS and how to enter it. That is important. But from now on, the labs, they will come already packaged with the data in SPSS. So that's good news, right? All right, so here we are at our SPSS file, and you see we have essay mark right here as a percentage. And we have how many hours the student spent studying, and then we have this grade, whether they're first class, third class, lower, second, whatever. I'm not sure. It must be a Britain thing. But we're going to ignore that one, right? And you can see all of 45 data points or subjects were put in there. So we've got for each subject those 3 pieces of information. Now you will have to go through and look at the information and make sure that all the data is good and that it meets the assumptions, right? So that was in the Exploring Data Lab. But we're going to go ahead and do the correlation because we're going to assume that we've already done that and everything's good. So here up on the top you'll see on SPSS Statistics is the Analyze tab. And just as it says in the book, this is where you're going to find the correlation, right? Correlate bivariate. That's what we wanted to do, is take 2 variables, bivariate, 2 variables, and we want to correlate them together. So if we click on that, you'll see we get this dialog box. And I know that you do not get this bootstrap button on your student version, and that's okay. Just forget it. Don't worry about it. We're not going to do the bootstrap thing. It's just an extra assurance in case assumptions are broken that you can use, but we're not going to go to that level here. So that one, just ignore. I know you only have these 2 buttons. So what we need to do is pull over what variables we're going to correlate. So we're going to pull over essay mark, right? Highlight it, pull it over, and hours spent on studying, and we're going to pull that over. Now you can see at the bottom here we have Pearson, the Kendall's, and the Spearman. Now remember, Pearson is what we're going to use here. Kendall's is if we've broken assumptions, right? If we don't have good data, if it's not normal, right? We could use this as an option. And Spearman as well, if you have data that's ordinal instead of interval or ratio. And we have interval ratio because you can see the scale out here, right? All right, we want 2-tailed significance, and we're going to flag significant correlations. Those give you little hints. I always check the other buttons. Do I need options? Means would probably be good to know what the means are for what was the average time spent studying and what was the average grade. That's helpful in your write-up. And the rest of these are fine. We're not going to worry about those. Style, nothing there. We don't worry about that. Now, one of the things I do want to say, a little bit in the book, it's different, a few things here or there, and I think that's mostly because, the author is kind of going above and beyond in lots of areas. We're going to keep it simple. So there's a few things as we go on in the labs that we're not going to worry about. And so, like this one, we're not going to do the bootstrap. So the next one, t-test, we're not going to do confidence intervals. That's not a standard thing that usually we use in the United States to begin with. So those things I'll try to remember to tell you, but if you get to something and you're like, oh, I don't know, or I don't have it, just put it up on that general course questions page, and maybe even send me an email saying, hey, I posted a question, can you look at it? And then I can answer for everybody. All right, so we've got our choices all marked. We're going to hit OK. It'll run, do its magic, and then we're going to get our output screen, right? And this is the output that I want you to attach in the lab. So what it tells us here is the mean score on the essay was 63.4499. Not a very good grade, right? The standard deviation is 6.7, and we had an N of 45, so all cases were counted. Here, hours spent on the essay was 8. Again, the standard deviation, 2.7. The N was 45. Now, this box right here is going to tell us whether we have any kind of relationship. Now, you can see here on this, we have the Pearson correlation. We have the significance level, or the P. Read that as P. And then the N again. So you can see that these two boxes are the same, and these two are the same. So basically what's happening here is it's going essay mark to essay mark, a correlation of 1. Well, obviously, because it's correlating it to itself. So we're going to ignore that. We're going to ignore this one. But this is essay mark to hours spent, and then it just flips it, hours spent to essay. So all you need to look at is this one box. So here you can see our correlation, or R, is 0.267. And then the significance is 0.077. Now we're looking for a p-value, right? P, significance, of under 0.05. This is not good news. Plus it didn't flag anything, right? So this tells me here that there is no significant relationship, all right? So let's, now that we have that, let's go back to, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and I think I have that pulled up somewhere, so we can look at how to write this up, okay? And really, it is easier if you use the example I have in the PowerPoints for your write-up, because that's really more of the standard that we use in, I don't know, maybe here in the States or at UNK, maybe is a better way to put it, on how to write it up. Now, this is interesting because my example here looks at some different data. So it says there was a significant relationship between time spent studying and exam performance. This is R, 0.397, P less than 0.001. The R squared, right, we have to figure out the R squared for our effect size, was medium. Sorry, the R squared is for how much variance, right, there is accounted for. And the effect size comes from up here, the actual R. So time spent studying accounts for 16% of the variance. Right here, we change this into a percentage, the R squared. And to get R squared, all you do is square the R. So time spent studying accounts for 16% of the exam performance. So given what I've got here for results, let's try to write that up. So I'm going to pull up a new document here on Word, and then I could transfer that over into the lab. All right, let's go back to our example of how we write this up. So I know I've got all my information. I got my example, I've got my output, and here I'm going to start writing. So we would say there was not a significant relationship between the essay mark, and you can put in here the mean of the essay mark, so that was 63.44 if you want, or you can leave it out. Our write-up doesn't have it. and hours spent on the essay. And that, we said, was a mean equals 8.34. And again, you can put that in if you want, or you don't have to. Now, here's where we put in our data from our output. So the R, right, equals 0.267. Oops, and we don't need this to be, that part to be italicized, but the R technically should be, so 2.67. And what do we have for a P? Should be italicized. P equals, oops, P equals 0.077, right? And now we have to figure out our R squared. And this is always tricky. We do this to get the little 2, and we take this off, equals. So now we have to multiply 0.2, or square the R, to 0.267 times 0.267. That equals 0.071. So you see that doesn't have very much variance. If we put that into a percentage, it's only, what, 7%. So, and then we say what? This is actually a small effect size because it does not approach 3. 1 is small, 0.1 is small, 0.3 is medium, 0.5 is large. And hopefully somewhere along the line you've seen that. I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and double check. And then we can put time spent on the essay, right? Account for, and we said 7% because we're changing that R squared to a percentage of the variance in the essay mark. So in other words, this is saying only 7% of the time spent on the essay in this example accounted for the grade. There's lots of other things that go into it, maybe like prior knowledge, how much they slept the night before, what they had to eat. I mean, it could be all kinds of things, right? And that's the thing. Correlation does not mean causation. So even if we had a positive correlation here that was significant, then we can't say that it is a cause. It's just a relationship, right? Correlation does not equal causation. We always have to remember that. Okay, so there's our write-up. We could put that into the discussion board and also attach the output, right? And on this one, I want you also to respond to 2 of your peers. So just, make some comment, look at what they did, how they wrote it up, and, give them some feedback. Like, this was great, or this is confusing, or how did you get that? Whatever you want to do. I just want you to see a couple other people's write-ups. So, all right, I think that's all, guys. Good luck. Hang in there. I know this stuff is difficult, but we're going to get through it, okay? Keep your questions coming, and I'll try to get the answers. Bye-bye.